After her son acted recklessly and committed a crime, his mother, without hesitation, took the blame to keep him out of jail. After years behind bars, she reunites with him and, at a renowned university, surrounded by ambitious young people and endless parties, Michael stands out, not only for his vitality, but for his tendency to take each night a little further than the last. A business student, his social skills are as sharp as his intelligence, although he frequently puts pleasure before academic duty. On a Friday night, as the campus buzzed with the promise of fun, Michael sat in his chaotic room. Books and clothes were scattered around, but his focus was on choosing what to wear to impress. He opted for a patterned shirt and jeans, preparing for another memorable night. Talking on the phone with his friend James, the excitement was palpable. "James, man, you need to see the new bottle I bought. It's going to be epic today." James' response came with a dose of caution, "I just hope you don't overdo it this time, man. Remember the last one?" Laughing, Michael dismissed the worry. "That was nothing. Tonight is one of achievements." The meeting was scheduled at the local bar, a favorite gathering place for students due to its live music nights and drink promotions. Emily, a colleague in whom Michael had a special interest, was already there. She was the opposite of him, intelligent, beautiful, and more restrained. Michael met her at the counter and, with a confident smile, offered her a margarita. "I hope you like it. I promise they're the best here." Emily accepted with a smile, "Thank you, Michael. You always know how to liven up the night." The party grew in intensity, and Michael, always in the spotlight, increased the pace of his drink. With each glass, their stories became grander and their jokes more audacious. The music, the pulsating lights, and the buzz of the bar formed the perfect backdrop for his unbridled performance. However, outside the bar, a figure watched worriedly. Sarah, Michael's mother, had followed her son there, fearing that he would try to drive after drinking. From the outside, she peered out the window, watching Michael lose himself in the alcoholic euphoria. She thought, anguished, "I just hope he listens to me today." Michael was on the tightrope between youthful irresponsibility and the expectations of adulthood, ignorant of the consequences his choices would bring. Sarah, from afar, watched and waited, her heart sinking with fear of what might come next. As the evening progressed at the local bar, the atmosphere vibrated with laughter and the sound of pulsating music. Michael, already quite intoxicated, gave in to euphoria, surrounded by friends who encouraged him with each new toast. Emily, although participating in the celebration, cast worried glances in Michael's direction, realizing that he exceeded his limits. "Let's go, one more round for everyone. Tonight is ours alone," Michael exclaimed, raising his glass in a theatrical gesture. "Michael, you've had too much to drink. Don't you think it's already good?" Emily tried to moderate him, but her voice was lost in the hubbub of the room. "The night is just beginning, Emily. Relax and enjoy the moment." Michael laughed, dismissing the worries with a wave of his hand as the night unfolded into more laughter and dancing. Sarah, Michael's worried mother, decided it was time to act. She entered the bar, her anxious gaze sweeping the crowd until she fixed on her son. As she approached, the tension was palpable, a mother fearing the worst and a son lost in recklessness. "Michael, we need to talk. You can't drive like that," Sarah approached, her voice firm but full of concern. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I'm having fun," Michael responded, clearly annoyed by the intervention. "I know, dear. But you drank too much. Come on, I'll take you home, or call a taxi," she insisted, trying to guide Michael to a safe decision. "No. I'm fine. I'm going to have some more fun," Michael snapped, his stubbornness taking over. Emily intervened, supporting Sarah's concern. "Michael, maybe your mother is right. You can have fun another time." But Michael was determined not to give in. On an impulse, he advanced toward the exit, with Sarah following closely, her pleas mingling with the noise of the night. He would get into his car, slamming the door hard, while Sarah begged at the driver's window. "Michael, I'm begging. Don't do that. It's dangerous," she said, hopelessness tinging her voice. "I know what I'm doing, Mom," Michael retorted, starting the car. The sound of the engine mingled with the distant music as he accelerated, leaving the bar and his worried mother behind. On that cold night, under the glow of the bar's neon lights, tragedy unfolded quickly after Michael insisted on drunk driving, despite the protests of his mother, Sarah. The car, out of control under his command, ran over an elderly man who was crossing the street at an unfortunate moment. The impact was brutal and immediate. The sound of denting metal and shattering glass cut through the night, followed by the muffled scream of the stricken man. Michael stopped the car abruptly, his heart beating wildly as he stared in the rearview mirror at his body lying on the asphalt. Sarah, who had followed her son fearing exactly this outcome, arrived at the scene seconds later, her worst fears confirmed. She got out of the car and ran to the man, checking his vital signs with trembling hands, as Michael looked on, paralyzed by guilt and alcohol. "He's alive, but we need an ambulance right away," Sarah shouted at the spectators who began to crowd. One of them took out his cell phone and started dialing emergency services. As sirens wailed in the distance, approaching, Michael and Sarah exchanged a look charged with emotion. In a barely audible whisper, but charged with despair, Michael pleaded, "Mom, please say it was you. I don't know what to do." Sarah, looking deeply into her son's eyes, saw the magnitude of his mistake and the palpable fear he felt. Driven by a maternal instinct to protect, she made a decision that would alter the course of their lives forever. "Okay, Michael. I take responsibility." When the police and ambulance arrived, Sarah calmly explained to the officers that she was behind the wheel, describing the accident as a horrific error of judgment on her part. Michael watched, mute and falling apart internally, as his mother was questioned and then taken to the police station to give further statements. The scene was chaotic, with paramedics tending to the elderly man and police blocking the area. Michael, alone now that his mother was being detained, felt the crushing weight of reality. Emily, who had come behind to check on him, "Michael, that's not right. You need to do something," she said, disappointment evident in her voice. He just nodded, unable to formulate an answer, his gaze lost in the distance. Emily sighed, realizing the depth of the situation and the gravity of the path Michael had chosen. The evening ended with Michael returning home to Emily's silence, while Sarah faced the legal consequences of a crime she did not commit. The reality of Michael's actions began to unfold, and the next steps promised to be even more tumultuous as Sarah's trial approached. The dim light of dawn could barely penetrate through the heavy curtains of Sarah's living room, where she spent the last days before the trial. Sitting at the coffee table, filled with legal documents and handwritten notes, she went over the details of the case with John, her lawyer and old family friend. John, a middle-aged man with gentle eyes and a calm demeanor, understood the depth of Sarah's sacrifice, though his heart weighed down the ethical conflict of his decision. "We could try a different approach, Sarah. Something that doesn't put you at so much risk," he suggested, his voice filled with concern. Sarah shook her head, her eyes fixed on the papers in front of her. "No, John. I've already decided. It's better this way. I need to protect Michael." Meanwhile, Michael tried to distract himself from the university routine, but guilt gnawed at his spirits. He walked the halls of the university with a shadow of sadness that his friends were beginning to notice. The parties and laughter, which had once been her escape, now seemed empty and forced. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was stuffy and packed with spectators. The judge, an imposing figure, presided over the room with an air of gravity. The prosecutor, a fast-talking man with precise gestures, presented the case against Sarah with fervor. He described the accident in detail, each word designed to paint Sarah as reckless and irresponsible. Sarah, wearing a simple blue suit, listened to each accusation with a forced calm, though her heart was tight. When it was her turn to speak, she stood, her voice steady, though every word cost a part of her soul. I was behind the wheel that night. The mistake was mine, and I accept the consequences of my actions," she declared, keeping her gaze steady on the judge, avoiding Michael's gaze, which burned in her direction. Michael, sitting in the back row, felt every word like a blow. He knew the truth, but fear and uncertainty kept him paralyzed. Emily, sitting next to him, held his hand, trying to offer some comfort. After hours of deliberations, the jury returned with the verdict, guilty. The sentence was pronounced with a grim purpose, 7 years in prison. The judge's gavel struck, sealing Sarah's fate. Michael watched helplessly as his mother was taken away by the bailiffs. The reality of his decision and its consequences settled deep, a bitter lesson about the truth and its shadows. In the days that followed, Michael's life was a blur of regret and reflection. Her mother's absence turned every family space into a reminder of her absence. Meanwhile, Sarah, now behind bars, faced the beginning of a new reality, each day a journey through the aftermath of a love that led her to sacrifice everything. Sarah, as she crossed the prison gates, entered a world of rigid rules and harsh realities, a drastic change from her previous life. The mornings began with the metal lock on the doors closing, a sound that quickly became the daily awakening into your new reality. Sarah was engaged in her assigned tasks, one of which was working in the laundry, where the noise of the machines became a constant sound background for her thoughts. During recreation hours, she would walk through the prison yard, an open space but surrounded by high walls and barbed wire. It was in these brief moments outdoors that Sarah felt the sun, albeit filtered through the physical barriers, warming her skin and bringing a brief respite to her routine. Over the course of her days, Sarah found camaraderie with other inmates, sharing stories and experiences. In one of these interactions, Jennifer, a middle-aged woman with a tired but gentle look, expressed surprise at seeing someone like Sarah there. She questioned, "You don't seem to belong here, Sarah. How did someone like you end up here?" Sarah, reflecting on the twists and turns life takes, replied, "Sometimes the choices we make out of love lead us down paths we would never expect to take." Sarah also participated in a support group in prison, led by volunteer psychologist Dr. Rachel. During a session, Dr. Rachel encouraged Sarah to share her feelings and concerns. Sarah, pouring her heart out, said, "I know, doctor. But sometimes, I feel that by protecting my son, I have failed him in another way. I wonder if he really learned anything from all of this." Dr. Rachel, offering compassionate understanding, responded, "Sarah, it's important to acknowledge and accept your feelings, no matter how difficult they may be." As the months passed, Sarah began to adjust to prison life, finding strength in the small interactions and support of the group. She continued to send letters to Michael, trying to maintain a connection with him despite the distance and silence that often returned. Meanwhile, on the outside, Michael struggled with his own internal battle, the weight of guilt shaping his actions and thoughts. He became increasingly reclusive, the image of his mother taking the blame for his actions haunting him constantly. As the days turned into months, Sarah found new purpose within the prison walls. Through therapy sessions and conversations with other inmates, she began to see a way to change the narrative of her life. It was during one of these encounters that Jessica, new friend she made in prison, mentioned John, the lawyer who had long helped inmates reassess their cases. Jessica, noticing Sarah's quiet desperation, suggested a new approach. "Sarah, maybe it's time to fight another way. John can help more than you think." Encouraged by the possibility of change, Sarah reached out to John, who was already familiar with the nuances of her case. On a visit to the prison, John brought news that rekindled hope in Sarah's heart. John, with a folder of documents under his arm, explained, "Sarah, I've been reviewing your case. There are some irregularities that we can exploit. We will work together to seek a reassessment." With John's renewed support, they began preparing a detailed petition, pointing out the procedural flaws and possible injustices in the original trial. John dedicated long hours to Sarah's case, driven not only by justice but by the strong connection he felt with her family. The process of re-evaluating Sarah's case was arduous and full of uncertainty. Each hearing, each presentation of new evidence, each testimony brought with it a mixture of hope and anxiety. During a pivotal moment at a review hearing, John made a compelling case about the failures in evidence collection and witness testimony that could have been influenced by the pressure of the moment. The court must consider that Sarah's testimony on the night of the incident was given under extreme emotional stress, which may have compromised its veracity, John argued before a judge. After months of legal struggles, the final answer came on a cold autumn morning. Sarah was summoned to court to hear the decision. The judge, after a long pause that seemed to be extended, finally announced that Sarah's conviction would be reviewed and reduced, acknowledging the flaws in the original process. Sarah's emotion was palpable, tears welling up in her eyes as John held her hand in sympathy. "You're coming home, Sarah. You fought bravely." With the news of the review of the sentence, Sarah felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She knew there was still a way to go to her complete freedom, but hope was now more alive than ever. This victory not only changed the course of Sarah's destiny, but it also served as a turning point for Michael, who began to realize the depth of his mother's sacrifice. He knew he had to make changes in his own life, starting with facing the truths he had avoided so much. As Sarah moved forward on her journey of redemption, Michael faced his own internal battles. The apartment where he lived with Emily became a constant reminder of the emptiness left by his mother's absence. The walls, once filled with laughter and family warmth, now echoed a heavy silence, punctuated only by Emily's efforts to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Michael spent his days trying to engage in his responsibilities at university and work, but guilt and remorse often overwhelmed him. Emily, watching Michael struggle, did her best to support him, though she often felt lost about how to help. Emily, one night while trying to have dinner together at home, expressed her concern, "Michael, I see you're struggling, and I want to help, but you need to talk about what you're feeling. We can't go on like this." Michael, looking at the nearly intact plate in front of him, replied hesitantly, "I know, Emily. It's just that. Everything reminds me of her, and I don't know how to deal with it. I feel like I failed her in so many ways." Emily held Michael's hand, trying to offer some comfort. "You still have time to do the right things, Michael. Your mother will come back soon, and you can start repairing things." Emily's words had a hopeful tinge, but Michael knew that the road to reconciliation would be long and complicated. He began attending therapy sessions, a step he initially resisted but which gradually proved essential to his healing. In these sessions, Michael explored the layers of his guilt and the motives behind his actions on the night of the accident. With the help of his therapist, he began to understand the dynamics of his relationship with his mother and the expectations he had internalized over the years. The therapist, in one particularly revealing session, said, "Michael, it's important to acknowledge mistakes, but it's also vital to learn from them and forgive yourself so you can move forward. Your mother made her decisions out of love, and now you need to decide how you will respond to that love and sacrifice." While Michael worked on his own redemption, Sarah prepared for his eventual freedom. She kept herself informed of Michael's progress through the letters they exchanged, each carefully written word revealing a mixture of motherly concern and pride in his effort to face his demons. Life with Emily was also beginning to stabilize, as Michael took concrete steps to change. They began planning together how they would welcome Sarah home, discussing ways to renovate the apartment to mark a new beginning for all of them. Finally, the day of Sarah's release arrived. The sky was gray and heavy with clouds, as if anticipating the importance of the moment. Sarah, with a mixture of nervousness and relief, walked through the prison gates, breathing deeply in the fresh air of freedom. John was there to greet her, his warm smile offering immediate comfort. "You're free, Sarah. Let's go home," John said, helping her with a small suitcase that contained all her belongings accumulated during her years in prison. The trip back home was quiet, but full of restrained emotions. Sarah watched the landscape pass by, each mile traveled bringing her closer to the life she had left behind and now longed to rebuild. Michael and Emily prepared the apartment for Sarah's arrival, trying to make the space cozy and comforting. Fresh flowers were placed in the room, and photos of framed happy moments adorned the walls, a visual reminder of the memories that were still worth celebrating. When Sarah entered the apartment, emotions overwhelmed her. Michael was there, waiting for her with a tight hug and tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom." "For everything," Michael murmured, his voice choked with emotion. "We are together now, that's what matters." "Let's rebuild, together," Sarah replied, holding her son in a lingering embrace. In the days that followed, Sarah worked to readjust to life outside prison. She resumed old hobbies and began to explore new interests, things she considered therapeutic. But as she rebuilt her life, she was also planning a strategic move that would surprise everyone, especially Michael. Before she was arrested, Sarah had made a shrewd financial move. Worried that something might happen, she transferred most of her money to a secure account, accessible only by her. Now free, she decided it was time to use these resources to start anew, in a way that would also teach Michael a valuable lesson. Sarah set up a meeting with Michael and Emily to discuss the future. Sitting together in the living room, the tension was palpable. "Michael, I want you to know that I'm starting a new life, and part of that is making sure our future is safe and responsible," Sarah began, choosing her words carefully. "I withdrew the money I had saved and I will use it to invest in a project that I believe in. The apartment is yours, Michael, but the money is going to be used in a way that I think will be better for all of us in the long run," she explained, noting her son's reaction. Michael, surprised and initially disappointed, took a long time to understand his mother's decision. However, as she reflected on recent years and the very choices she had made, she began to see the wisdom in her mother's actions. "I understand, Mom. I hope to earn that trust," Michael finally replied, a new sense of maturity emerging in his voice. After the revealing meeting with Michael about her finances, Sarah felt relieved to have put her cards on the table, ready to start a new chapter in her life with honesty and purpose. With the money she had saved and now affordable, she planned to invest in a small business she had always dreamed of opening, a bookstore cafe, a place that would offer a welcoming haven for the community, uniting her passion for books and her desire to create a space for meeting and learning. Meanwhile, Michael, though initially shaken by his mother's decision to use the funds independently, was beginning to see it as an incentive to take more responsibility over his own life. He was more actively involved in university and community projects, determined to show that he could make wise choices and contribute positively to society. Sarah and John, who had become not only a trusted lawyer but also a close friend and advisor, worked together to bring the bookstore cafe project to life. They chose a charming spot in the center of the city, with large windows and enough space to accommodate bookshelves full of books and several tables where visitors could enjoy a good read and a coffee. John commented during one of the planning meetings, "This place has great potential, Sarah. I think it will be more than a bookstore, it will be a meeting point for the community." Sarah, looking at the empty space that would soon be transformed, replied with a smile, "That's exactly what I expect, John. A place where people not only share a coffee, but also stories and ideas." The process of opening the business was arduous and demanded a lot from Sarah, but every step in the process of renovating the space, from selecting the books to choosing the cafe's menu, was done with care and attention. The local community was beginning to show great interest in the project, and many offered help, excited about the initiative to bring something new and positive to the neighborhood. Michael frequently visited the site, helping as much as he could, whether it was setting up shelves or spreading the word about the grand opening. His relationship with Sarah was strengthened, each day based on respect and understanding. On a quiet afternoon as they worked together, Michael said, "Mom, I really believe this is going to be amazing. I'm proud of you and I'm sorry for everything before." Sarah, running an arm around Michael's shoulder, replied, "We're in this together, Michael. The past has taught us a lot, and the future is ours to build." Finally, the day of the inauguration arrived. The bookstore cafe was packed with guests, soft music playing in the background as people explored the shelves and enjoyed their first cups of coffee. Sarah, standing near the entrance, greeted each visitor with a radiant smile. It was more than a dream come true, it was the celebration of their resilience and renewal. This new beginning for Sarah was not only about rebuilding her life, but also about restoring her connection with Michael and giving something back to the community that supported her during the difficult times. With the bookshop cafe thriving and her relationship with Michael in a better place, Sarah felt truly at home, ready to take on whatever the future held. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.